Mavis Camera has a really comprehensive and very powerful audio mixing system built inside it to enable you to make your stereo mixes for your recordings and for your live streams. Now, Mavis Camera is a free download, and I'll try and remind you at the end of the video to go and download it. And I'd say about 50% of what we're going to talk to you today is in that free download. Now, this is what Mavis Camera looks like, especially if you're shooting a guy playing a guitar in a smoke-filled room. But the thing we're specifically interested in is this button, because this button opens the sound panel. And we're presented initially with the simple sound panel to help us make that stereo mix. Now, the first thing we want to look at is inputs, and we can use this little microphone button here. If we tap that, we can see what input is being selected, and currently we are in auto mode. Now, this means that Mavis Camera is going to do its best job to choose the right microphone for you. So, for example, if I'm using the back-facing camera, it might use the back mic. If I'm using the selfie camera, it might use the front mic. Right now, for example, I'm using a radio mic, so it's chosen to use that one. You can tell that because that's where the little mic is sitting right now. So it says right now it's chosen the back mic. But what happens if I want to record something and I want to look at the screen while I'm recording it and voice over? Well, then I kind of want the front mic because that's the mic pointing at me, but I want the back camera. So I can do that very easily. All I have to do is go down into the list and select the front microphone. Now, what's happened now is you can see it says front on the channels there, but the microphone there, that's gone orange. And that is showing you that we are no longer in auto mode. We've done something specific, in this case, selected the front facing camera. Now, if you have a look down on the options there, when we reopen the menu, you can see that we've got the microphone mode that we can now change. And this, again, is very useful because if I'm doing a voiceover, I probably don't want a stereo mix. So I can actually choose the cardioid pattern for that mic. Now, this is using the internal microphone at the moment, but for the rest of the video, I'm just going to put that back to auto because it's just easier. Now, let's have a look at these buttons here, and these are our on and off buttons. So, for example, I can turn channel 1 off. Or I could turn channel 2 off. Now, I'm not sending any audio out. I'm not recording anything and I'm not streaming anything. This is very useful if you're starting a stream, for example, and you need to start with some picture and you don't need any audio. You can just turn it off. And we haven't disabled the audio. We're actually sending silence. We've just made a silent mix. So again, it's very useful because that is going out the door. That's exactly what will be heard if somebody now listens to it. They're listening to silence. Once I turn those back on again, they will then hear the full mix. Now, as I said, today I'm using a radio mic which is plugged in to Mavis Camera in front of me. So how does that work? Well, actually, I'm using this particular radio mic here. And the thing about a radio mic is that the microphone to the receiver, that's that little box, that's the wireless bit. The receiver to the phone, that typically needs to be plugged in. So we're going to plug it in with the USB cable there. And when we look at the Mavis sound panel, we'll notice that it is now switched into that Wireless Go radio mic. Why? Well, because we are in auto mode. It's detected that we've plugged it in and it's switched into that. You'll also notice that in the menu, it says we've got the external microphone in use there. Now, you may notice that those mutes, those channels have turned back on. They were turned off a minute ago, now they're turned back on. And the reason that is because every device that you plug in, we remember the settings. So Mavis will remember what settings you last had for the last device you plugged in, and therefore we can recall it straight away. So you can set something up, that's fine, put it in your bag, take it somewhere, get it out again, and turn it all on in whatever order you want, and it will remember the settings for that particular microphone. So that's really useful if you've got lots of devices and you're chopping and changing around what you're doing. Okay, the last thing in this panel is the monitor tool at the top there. If you tap this, it will allow you to hear the sound that you're recording. Where you're going to hear it, well, that depends on what you've got plugged in. So right now, it's going to go to the internal speaker. That's okay for the radio mics. Might howl around on the internal mics, but you can just turn it on and have a listen. If you've got an audio input device that has a wired headphone socket, then it will try and go to there. And that's the best place to monitor your audio. If you can get wired headphones in, that's really good because you don't get the latency that you'll get with Bluetooth headphones. Right, now let's have a look at the advanced button because this is where we can make a much more comprehensive mix. Okay, so right now, of course, we've got the radio mic plugged in, and what we can see here is that we've panned our radio mic left and right. Now, if you don't know what panning is, it's just a knob that determines which ear the sound is going to come out of. So here, for example, channel 1 or mic 1 is going to come out of the left ear, and channel 2 or mic 2 is going to come out of the right ear. but that might not be what we want. I mean, that's typically not what happens. I mean, if there's a couple of people here having a chat, then you haven't got one coming out of one ear and one coming out of the other. What you've got is a subtle mix of the two. So we're going to do that now. So we can just take the pan control and just tip that round to the place that we want it. And the best way to get really good control, a really good fine grain control out of these knobs is to tap, hold somewhere on the glass, move it while you're still on the glass, and then you can draw a big arc, and it really helps you to get that fine grain control. Now, we can also adjust the gain. So if I tap on the microphone, I can turn it down a bit. Now, that might be because one of the persons that you've got has got the microphone slightly further down. Maybe they've got a slightly louder voice. Doesn't matter. You can just pick the gain of the microphone that you want to adjust and just drag that down. Now, this is with two inputs. This is with two inputs from one little mic. But what happens if you want more microphones? Well, Mavis can actually bring in up to 8 channels. Here's an example of a 4-channel box. This is, I think, a Focusrite box. And let's say, for example, I'm doing a live talk. Maybe a couple of people on stage, they're having a chat. Maybe I've got a microphone on each person and an overhead microphone in the venue for maybe some clapping, that kind of thing. And then maybe I've got a 4th input. Maybe that's coming from the house PA, or maybe it's just a microphone floating around the audience, maybe some questions, something like that. I've got that turned off. I don't want that going out of my stereo mix. I don't want it to be recorded in the stereo mix. So I don't want it to be streamed. It's there as a backup, but how can I use it? Well, this is where the ISOs come in. If I look at the ISO selection, I can now determine an individual channel's recording state. So I can say, well, I'm going to now tick R on these 3 channels, and I'm going to record them separately. So in my MOV file, I'll have the stereo mix, and I'll have 3 additional channels, 1 for each of those microphones. And now I can do a remix in post. But what about channel 4? I mean, that's turned off, right? Well, it is, but I can still record it. So I can leave it completely off for the entire gig. If it's a live stream, never goes out. But what I can do is a refactor later where I use that microphone 4 should I need to. Now let's have a look at the last one in this panel, which is solo. And this is really about advanced monitoring. So if we go to the monitoring tab at the top there, we can tap the little thing and turn on the headphones. Now you notice it say headphones. That's because this particular Focusrite box has got a wired headphone jack on it. So I can plug in some wired headphones, and that's where I'm going to hear my stereo mix. But I am at the moment only listening to the stereo mix. What if I want to listen to an individual channel? Well, this is where the solos come in. So if I tap the one above number 3 there, I'm listening to channel 3. Now, these are called pre-fade solos. So the solos are happening before any of the fading or the panning, which means I can listen to that completely raw as it's coming in. I can also do that for channel 4, because even though channel 4 is turned off, the solo happens before all of that. So I can listen to channel 4. So I know it's being recorded. I know the right stuff's there, but it never goes out. Now, solos only happen when the solos panel is open, because you don't want to get into a mistake where you're sitting there going, oh, this is a really nice mix, and then you realize that actually it's all on the solos and no one can hear anything. So if you're not on solos, you don't hear the solos. You only hear the stereo mix. Now, this is what a multi-channel mixed system looks like when you have closed it back up to the simple panel. Yeah, you can still see the mix, but now what you've got is the ability to turn on and off those individual channels should you want them. So you can make a whole mix, you can turn it all off and just turn on things selectively without affecting the mix. It's nice and simple and very easy to operate. Now there's one last button I want to talk about, which is this reset button. If you get yourself into a mess, or something was set up from a previous gig or whatever, just hit the reset button, and yes, there is a box that asks you whether you're really sure about this, and then we can reset all the settings and you should get some sound out. So that's a really useful feature there as well. So that's it. That is the fantastic audio system in Mavis Camera. Mavis Camera is a free download, and we've looked at about 50% of this was in the free download. If you want to download it, I'm going to put a link in the descriptions. If you want to know more, then watch one of these vids. But for now, thanks for watching. Bye-bye. That's lunch o'clock. Excellent.